Welcome to Scoreboard, the podcast that explores how athletes, both current and retired, define success beyond the game. Each episode dives into the mindset, financial decisions, and career choices that shape their personal scoreboard, whether they're still in the arena or transitioning to life after sport. From victories to challenges, we reveal how athletes take charge of their own paths and decide what truly matters on their scoreboard of life. I'm your host, Chris Titley, and welcome to Scoreboard. Hi, it's Chris Titley here, and welcome to Scoreboard, the podcast. And today I'm joined by Kirk Reynoldson. Kirk, great to see you, mate. Long time.
Thanks for having us, mate. We have gone back a while, mate. Even you date pre-kids as well, mate.
Yeah, so that's right. That's right. Good to catch up, mate. And for the listeners out there that don't know, Kirk, he played 125, is that right? 125 NRL games?
You always cut me short, mate.
Go on. What's the real number?
Sure, I don't know if you Googled that, but I'm pretty sure I hit the 130, didn't I?
130. Well, I don't know, mate. It's you're the man there. Now, 130 NRL.
I don't Google myself much these days, mate. So that's part of your research.
That's right. That's right. I failed at first attempt. 130 odd NRL games for three different clubs: Newcastle, St George, and the Melbourne Storm. Kirk, 130 odd games. Which ones do you remember the most, mate?
Oh, mate, it's a good question, mate. Everyone asks me that. I think definitely the first one, because I know that, as I tell most people, like playing NRL was unreal, but the journey to get there, mate, was, I guess, for me, what the story was and my learnings were. And when I had played that first game, I remember it clear as day. We played the Auckland Warriors over at Ericsson Stadium in New Zealand. I was only a whippersnapper, 21. I think I was 21 playing front row, and I think I weighed, ringing wet, I think I was 93 kilos, so I would have been the lightest front rower ever. And, mate, I just remember putting that jersey on, looking in the mirror. And I've been playing since I was 4 years old in Western Queensland, just going, this is my dream, So to get there finally when I was 21 was pretty special, mate.
And the dream of playing NRL or playing a professional rugby league, where did that come from? You mentioned 4 years old. You pick up a footy. Was there someone or something that triggered that dream?
Mate, if anyone grew up out in Western Queensland, they'll know that rugby league is, you hear it, it's a cliche, but it's more than a game. It brought communities together. I grew up through the 80s out bush, through the drought. Interest rates were 20%. My family, we lost everything in the droughts. And so it was a pretty painful time for us as a family. But I just remember this thing they call rugby league. It brought everyone together, mate. And it was the only place I used to see mum and dad go and have a couple of tinnies, a few Forex. We'll give them a pump while we're here. But, everyone just lost everything that they thought about for the week, the stress, the finances, and it was just about the Taroomwandale Battlers playing Roma Cities, mate. And that, that's where my love for rugby league was born. And then, mates, it just happened one day. The Broncos played a trial game out there. And Dad actually, after we'd lost the farm, they bought the bus runs for the local school out there. And Dad took the Broncos from Miles up to Taroom for a trial game. I think they played the Canberra Raiders. And I was lucky enough, I was a young boy, I got to sit next to a very, very young Steve Renouf. And, mate, I know this is like a sliding doors moment, but he just slapped me on the back and he said, mate, and he obviously everyone knows Steve's story. He grew up in a small community as well. And he just said to me, you don't let anyone tell you can't play rugby league. He said, do you want to play in the ARL? And I said, yeah. And he goes, you just do it, mate. You dream it, you do it, don't believe anyone. And that was it, mate. It was cemented then, buddy.
And the I suppose the challenges of being selected along the way for juniors and then obviously to make an NRL, the rejections along the way. Do you remember any particular moments where you're like, right, I'm not good enough and I'll just throw in the towel?
All the time, mate. I think when I look back on my junior career, it's pain. It was painful. I never got in rep teams. I struggled to get in rep teams. I went away to boarding school in Toowoomba and I started playing rugby. And I really started to hit my straps and, I got introduced to the political game early on. Incumbent players were selected every single year and I was a new kid on the block. I was a rugby league boy playing rugby union. I had coaches sit me down and try to explain to me, you didn't get picked because their mum and dad, sponsor a school or put a heap of money into blah, blah, blah. And I didn't really understand any of that, mate. So I struggled from day one, Chris, eh?
And then the dream of playing in Queensland and playing for the Broncos, do you want to talk about that or you didn't end up playing for the Broncos?
Nah, didn't. Thanks, mate. I'm 45. I spent about 20 years getting over that, but that's all right. But the Bronx come in 88 and that was just everything. You would remember that.
Yeah, first game against Canberra. Yeah.
Hey? Yeah, 100%. Yeah, like they were huge, and being a Queensland country boy, like the Broncos were everything. Everyone grew up, they wanted to play for the Bronx and they wanted to play for Queensland, and I was no different. I was lucky enough to get a scholarship for the Broncos when I was at school, but yeah, just didn't get a shot. I ended up signing with the Eels. Long story short, mate, I ended up getting back into the system. I couldn't handle the city down there in Parramatta. I went up to North Queensland into Mackay, turned me from a boy into a man, and then I got back into the Bronx system, and I tried my hardest for 2 years to get a crack, mate, and I just couldn't get a crack. I played reserve grade, we won comps. Yeah, mate, and I just had to finally – I got some really good advice from a man that he grabbed me in the lift as I was going up to talk to Wayne Bennett about my contract, and he goes, mate, you've got to go to another club. And so, yeah, that sort of kind of spurred the direction, mate. I guess the approach, if it's not working what you're doing, you got to change your approach, and that's what I did.
And the three clubs that you played for, there's a soft spot for all three, I'd imagine, but is there a soft spot for one particular one?
Oh, mate, yeah, again, incredible question. I always get asked, Tits, and, soft spot, Melbourne Storm. I mean, their success over the last, since Craig Bellamy's been there for 20-odd years, mate, has been incredible. I think it's the first club that I played for, so I've always got a soft spot for Melbourne, and I'm not trying to be diplomatic, but I went to Newcastle, had an incredible time there, and I met some incredible people. Our success on the field probably wasn't there, what we wanted. We did get to the semis in one year I was there, but there was a bit of turmoil there, and I learned a heap of different lessons there. But and even St George, mate, I only played this season there, but I think the incredible thing about rugby league is you've got a special group of individuals that play it and who are involved in it. And myself and Katie and my family, we can go anywhere in Sydney, Newcastle, and down to Melbourne, and we've got family for life now, So, yeah, that was a real diplomatic answer there for you, mate.
No, absolutely. Look, life as a professional sports person, growing up, wanting to be one, and then playing 130 games, was it everything you sort of dreamed, or was there moments now that you look back and go, I probably should have potentially enjoyed it a bit more? Yeah,
I think so, mate. And I think, mate, as you know, Tits, in the industries we've been involved in, hindsight's a wonderful thing, and it's what pisses me off the most about everyone, is that anyone can make a different decision when you sit back and you look at the data and you look at the things that have happened in your life. But at the time, you've got all these sets of variables that you weigh up, and, I guess, part of being a professional athlete, and I'd challenge you to talk to most professional athletes, they're always trying to get better, so it's never good enough, right? Every little thing about their performance, they're never good enough. They're their harshest critic, and of course, when I look back and I go, geez, I'd love to enjoy that a bit more, or, this would have been better and this would have been better. But, ultimately, again, it sounds like a bit of a cliche, but all those decisions brought me to where we are today. And, I feel pretty proud, country kid in the middle of buttfuck, grew up, I got to the NRL, I played in the story about trying to make it in the NRL, the lessons that I learned, I'm pretty proud of what I achieved. I achieved against all odds a young country kid not even making it in the NRL. I'm pretty proud of the decisions I made at the time. I know that some were shit, but, in this game too, mate, like some decisions that I made, I remember Bellamy in my ear when I left, when I was trying to weigh up the decision to leave, and there was a whole heap of different variables why I left Melbourne. But he goes to me, we're going into a dynasty here. We've got the best pack. We're going to be superstars. And I deep down I knew that, but there was there were some reasons why I left. And at the time I was making a good decision. But when you look back there now, when you have the foresight of the future and what's happened, it's an easy decision to make, isn't it, Tits?
But at the time, yep, weighing up everything. Yeah. Mate, when you came off the field most of those games, and I've asked this in the last couple of episodes, did you have a feeling of happiness and enjoyment, or was it a bit of like, I should have, you mentioned you should have done better, and it's always this endless competitive, I suppose, spirit going through, but did you have fun on every game?
Yeah, you do, mate. I mean, obviously you have a lot more fun when you're winning, and I think for me, that's not right, actually, Kirk. That's I'm talking to myself in third person here, but I think you have the most fun, and when you explore your relationship with pain and trying to get better, and you have a shit game, and I think, this goes to looking back on my career now, and I try to talk to people about their relationship with failure and learning, embrace it, because when you succeed, mate, you don't actually learn. And I think as I've gotten older, I've realised that when I look back on my time and, you fuck up and you lose, you sit down and you're never more reflective when you lose, and you never work harder than when you lose. You never explore what edges you can get when you lose. You don't do that when you win. It takes a special person to do that when they win. And I think, I think for me, when I look back in the games that I really enjoyed is when I went through a period of toughness and I reflected and I worked on my game and I went back out there, and we could have lost, but as long as I fucking give it my best and I worked on the things that I need to work on and I did well, that was happiness for me. I think just improving that little bit more every week, mate, that's happiness.
And that's something now as a parent and watching kids play sport that you'd probably want to teach those kids, right?
100%, mate, and especially more in this environment. I just, and I've only just experienced this because I've got young kids. My oldest is 8 years old, middle child's 6, and the youngest is 3, and they're coming into sport and school. And I see this movement against competition. And I just think they're losing the greatest gift of all of competition, and that's actually teaching them how to lose and how to build frameworks around losing and getting better. And that's what I really struggle with at the moment. And I put my hand up, mate. I'm trying my best like everyone else. I'm not the best dad in the world, but that's the one thing that I see with kids. Like you would have seen that with your own kids, Tits. When they lose and when they don't get everything their own way, they actually start to put together these, you can see them, they're like sponges. They start to put together this resilience framework and this learning, this capability to learn from mistakes, put stuff together and do it better the next time. And I guess that's what I feel is the best about my experience as a professional athlete.
Touching on that word resilience, is that something which you feel like you're very strong at post your NRL days?
I'd have to say, yeah, mate. I mean, we've known each other since Aussie currency trading days, mate. So
that's another story.
And if that's not a tough industry to crack your nut on, I don't know what is. But I think, mate, I'm 45 and I'm still learning every day. But I know that resilience for me, I've been to the depths, the lowest lows, the hells on earth, and I know I can pull myself back out of that. And it's just, and all that is just a commitment to every day. Working hard, reflecting, looking at what I've done, looking at what we've done as a team and moving forward. And I know that through that process, I've really been experienced with being comfortable with pain. I don't think professional athletes aren't superhuman. All they've done is explored their relationship with pain. They've gotten comfortable with pain and they've done it every single day. And they've put the frameworks around how to deal with that. So I think for me, mate, I think that I have a much higher tolerance and a higher level of professionalism around pain and when we go through pain, and I can see the opportunity in pain. And I think that's what not most people do because the emotions come involved. It starts to get real hard and then they just lose their shizzles, So I think that's what I'm good at, mate.
And relating that post your professional sport, and let's get on to that now, the transition from being a sports person to finding your feet off the field, and as you mentioned, you're 45, there's been a bit of a gap. How was that initially?
Yeah, it was tough, mate. Like everyone, I think, I was just thinking about this actually when you asked me to come on the potty. I do some work with the NRL transitioning team around retiring athletes, and I think one thing that they don't actually emphasise and what needs to be emphasised is that it's painful. Retirement's painful, and to accept that. It's going to be pain. It's not... You have everything done for you, mate. You've got everything done for you. You are a professional athlete in rugby league, whatever it is. And when you retire, then you've got to wrap that framework and learn a different thing around applying it and finding something else. And that's okay. I think acceptance of that pain was the biggest thing, mate, after retirement. And then I think that the thing about that then is then finding your passion. Rugby league, I think, people throw it around all the time, but I think that's what separates professional athletes too. They've found their passion and their love. They turn up discipline and waking up early and doing the little things. You don't even talk about that, mate. That's because it's when you're passionate about something, that shit just comes naturally. And, that's the other thing I figured out with transition. Sometimes it's good to do things and figure out, that's a definite no, I'm not passionate about that. And I think you just keep, I think it's the same as startup, mate, and trying to find that passion again. It's trying to find what you're passionate about, but two, realizing that it's going to be okay. You're going to feel pain, explore the pain, and just go through and build that framework around resilience again, mate. V2.
V2, that's right. And we did chat briefly about when we first met as you were a currency trader, and I got introduced to you by a guy called Troy Harry, and we had a chat about currency at the time. What were you up to then?
Mate, I've always loved games. I've always loved strategy. Even when I was playing football, I was always really interested in businesses. I was lucky. I had a lot of sponsors that would take me through their businesses, and they'd teach me about their economic drivers, and then naturally, like, it just floated into the stock exchange, and I was just fascinated by the movement of currencies, and through fundamental economic releases. I remember watching, like unemployment claims, interest rate releases on the first Tuesday of every month, the RBA, and watching what would happen to the Aussie dollar. And I'd just be going, what is this game? And like, for me, it was just a real passion. I love it. I absolutely love it. I still trade today. And, it's taken me a long time to try and build a positive cash flow around it. But that was it. It's like, I guess for me, it was a bit of a magic, a bit of an art, and I wanted to talk to people who were experts in the industry. Hence how I come to you.
And then our worlds collided a year or two after that around working with Suncorp when you formed Eggy. Can you talk about Eggy, and can you talk about the journey so far and what Eggy is and how I can hear your passion and how you're so passionate about helping people?
Mate, Eggy honestly started with a problem that myself and my wife wanted to solve. We had multiple businesses. We had shit everywhere. You told me I'm allowed to swear here, mate. And we started having kids. So that just like threw diesel on the fire. We had multiple Dropbox accounts. We had Google accounts. We had 4 calendars going at the time. And we literally started building a tech product around centralizing that shit show, bringing it all together, making it really easy to share with key stakeholders. That's where we started with Eggy, mate. Eggy is that's the tagline, Eggy Life Unscrambled. Like for us, it was you look at, for us, we see a real movement today, mate, around, it's not just work tech, it's life tech. Like everyone's life is built of all these variables, and then it just wasn't a system that managed it all in one. And everyone claims that they did, but like at the time, we were just struggling to find anything, and that's how we started Eggy, buddy.
And the name, who was it? Was it you or Kate?
No, that's the brilliance of my beautiful wife, mate. She's a genius when it comes to that. She just has this ability. Like she did her. If anyone doesn't know my wife, probably not many people, but she did food science and dietetics, and then she did a PhD. So research was her background. She just has this really brilliant ability to analyze and kind of draw in qualitative research and then spit out like a tagline or branding around, the positions you just perfectly into a market. So we were trying for ages to look for a name, Tits, and then all of a sudden she just come up one day, she goes, Eggy, Life Unscrambled. I went, straight on to crazy domains, let's go.
And mate, I did follow your travels about a year ago, I think it was, when you took the family across the United States. Can you talk us through that particular journey, the why, the how, and what you learned from it?
Oh, mate, they talk about it all the time. We're in the car coming to school today. They're like, America, Jimmy Fruitfly, the youngest, is going, we want to go back to America. And then I put the little girl to bed on Sunday, and she goes, Daddy, can you promise me we go back to the United States? And I said, yeah, 100%. So I think it goes back to the relationship to pain and what we're talking about, and I'm really, really fortunate and lucky to have my best friend, my soulmate on this journey with me, my wife, Katie Morgan. Like she's in Eggy as much as I am, probably even deeper because, she's mum. Yep. She's mum as well, right? So we've just got this thing. We know that we're going through tough times now, but we know there's going to be a light at the end of the tunnel, and it's coming, and we can see it already. And this little period of time, it's going to be unlocked, and the door will shut, and we'll never have it back again, So, like, I guess we always go at pain with that attitude. And I know that Katie, she drank some wine and I had some beers, mate. It was the only way we could cope with those 3 kids. But, we had the best time ever. And we know some people will never experience that in their life. We just wish everyone could experience it,
The reason I chose the word scoreboard for the podcast is the scoreboard of life sort of changes, I suppose, sometimes for people in regards to their goals and their visions and their outcomes and whatever happens. And as a kid growing up in regional Queensland, your dream was to play professional rugby league, and you fulfilled that dream. And now you're sitting here at 45. What has the scoreboard changed for you? What are you thinking about now as a priority?
Yeah, the scoreboard, it's funny how the scoreboard changes, mate. You know, and if I'd be honest with myself, I think my later years of rugby league, I think the scoreboard changed for me. And I think that's why, I retired at 29, pretty young. For me, it's all about personal growth. Tits, you know, like I challenge my personal growth for me is good health. Again, sounds a bit cliche, but making sure that I'm on top of my health. I'm training really well. I'm exercising well. Being in the moment, like my soul and my spirit, you know, spending time with my family, and really, obviously, the focus for me now is my kids. You know, like myself and Katie just want to create an environment. And again, we were talking about, you know, the value of poverty and not giving them everything that they need to help them evolve and succeed in life. You know, like so, really trying to create an environment. So the scoreboard for me is to create an environment for my kids that can learn the most that they can in their lifetime. And for me, it's the same, you know, like I want to learn. I want to get my pilot's license. I want to learn to, you know, drive a yacht. I want to get my truck license. I want to fly a helicopter, you know, like, so for me, just every day it's consistently learning. And obviously with Eggy, mate, I've got goals there as well.
Mate, I'm going to throw a few words at you, and you can describe whether you are that person or not, and you can go on and give me a short answer or a long answer. It's up to you, but I'm going to start with a risk taker.
Yeah, I am a risk taker. And I'll tell you the story behind this, mate. I watched my best mate die in my arms when I was 14, and we were playing rugby league. And we both went to boarding school together, and we slept in the same bed. Sorry, in the bed next to me. That sounded a bit bad. Benny. But, you know, and he was from Woodford. We both dreamed about playing NRL. We both, you know, had dreams about girls. We both had the same things, mate. And he died when, you know, we were playing a game of footy, and, you know, just unfortunate set of circumstances that happened. And from that day onwards, mate, I've always thought of him through key milestones. And every day I wake up, I just go, mate, I could be with Benny at 14 years of age. So, like, for me, I promised myself, and I promised him, you know, watching him die in my arms, that I'd live every day of my life like it was my last. So, yeah, I think that helps me with my risk. But I'm reading Elon Musk. I don't know if anyone's read Walter Isaacson. I think he's one of the greatest biographers I've ever read in my life. But he wrote the biography on Elon Musk, and he talks about putting everything on the line when you believe and you got conviction in something. But you have to have variables that you can't be, your ego can't be attached to the position. You put everything down when you got conviction. When your ego, let your ego go. But when you've got key variables that you know work for you in your life, and it's saying you're wrong, you've got to walk away. So I'm big on that too, mate. I'm big on doubling down. And I mean, you've seen Eggy from the start, mate. Like we move. We're moving to find market fit. We're not held to a position. We're trying to find traction in market. So, yeah, I'm big on risk, but I'm not big on risk when it doesn't make sense.
What about confidence?
Confidence, something I'm still working on, mate. I think probably if anyone would say this, it's probably been my biggest challenge since I was a kid, country kid. I was always shy. So, yeah, confidence comes in many forms, yeah. So I think that I'm still working on it. I think that I know that I get more as I become have more conviction in myself as a human, and, you know, the different scoreboard that I've got, mate, like, and wanting the scoreboard for my own reasons, my confidence is natural. It starts to come out. So it's just being, you know, more confident about who I want to be.
Funny.
First thing I thought, you want me to tell me instinct? My wife, if she was on this podcast, she'd say, I am not funny. Mate, I'm the funniest bloke alive. You're kidding me, Chris. Hey, mate, I'm dad jokes. I've got them.
You got one? You got one off the cuff, mate?
What's that, mate?
You got one off the cuff, a bit of a dad joke?
I have, mate. I have.
Go on.
I just told this to our devs team. So, like, I project manage the engineering team. We start off with the joke of the week. If I was American and I walked into the toilet, when I walked out of the toilet, I'm American as well. What was I when I was in the toilet?
I don't want to answer it. Go for it.
European.
Oh, that's a bit like the what did the cheese say?
Come on, mate. That's a quacker.
It is. What did the cheese say to itself when it looked into the mirror?
No, mate.
Hello, me. There you go. This podcast is going.
I was going to
downhill.
say, have we got time for one more joke?
Go for it. No, have you got one more?
Yeah, I've got one, mate. Two beans went on a road trip around Australia. Guess where they ended up?
No, nothing.
In Cairns.
I was a bit slow on that one, but I got there in the end. I'm going to throw.
You'll be doing a new potty.
Yeah, that's right. I'm going to a couple more words before we leave.
We can't wrap up. You promised me this podcast would go for 60 minutes. People are going to listen, mate. You know that.
They are. There's a fine line between confidence and arrogance. What about getting in regards to arrogance? How did you go about that when it came to sporting moments? And again, being a little bit selfish on the field as well as now in life being off the field.
Well, I think the difference between confidence and arrogance is ego, mate. So I think that arrogance, if you're not contributing to the team, you're more or less, you're trying to, put forward your own contribution is more important than what it is for the team, right? That's how I kind of weigh that up. And I think Craig Bellamy epitomises that. Like, he is all about the team. Like, everyone wants to know what his secret is, but his team comes first. That's it. There's no marquee players come first. And I think off the field too, mate, like, and I'm starting to become more confident and have more conviction in the boardroom, and you see it a mile away. People either want to fight for their arrogance or their ideas because it's good for them and it makes their ego feel better, or not for the team. And I think that's the difference between confidence and arrogance, mate.
What about empathetic?
Empathetic, I think, is one of my stronger skills. I have a lot of empathy, which I love. Right now, I'm running front and center of sales, product management, and project management. And I think if you're going to lead teams, you have to have empathy. I know to some point there are leaders out there that have led different ways, but if you don't have empathy for your audience, I don't know how you can be a quality leader long term.
And mate, I'm going to ask one final question when it comes to kids' sport and being a parent now. What's some advice that you can give to your children, and my kids are also playing sport, when it comes to enjoyment versus trying to become a professional and idolising your heroes, as you did on that bus trip back in the day?
I go back to it. They've got to love it. I think when I look back on my professional career, mate, I think pain. The journey, again, like this is the thing too, mate, like the journey, the story around me trying to make it one game in the NRL is incredible. And maybe we'll do that on another podcast, mate. But you live in pain. And if you make it as a professional athlete, 9 times out of 10, every performance that you do, you're carrying an injury and you're playing in pain all the time. And it's painful to hear constructive feedback, especially from really good coaches, because they'll be honest with you. And I think that's number one. Make sure your kids love what they do, and they can't be playing for you. Like, I see it all the time. I see parents pushing their kids, I want them to play footy, I want them to play a team sport. But if they're not into it, you're actually creating more pain for the kid. They just don't want to do it. For the parents, I really actually think, like, if you can get your kids to love what they do, and they'll guide you, and again, I'm putting my hand up here. I'm not a perfect parent, but what I'm noticing with my kids is they guide you to what they're really interested in. And I think your job is just to feed the beast. Like, just keep feeding them, keep feeding them. And, my little boy, for example, I could go through all my kids, but he loves rugby league, but mate, he has just gotten into soccer at the moment. And I sat down with him and we watched the Messi's docuseries on Messi's World Cup. We're watching that. I never played soccer in my life, but I'm feeding it,
Yep.
Because the other thing too is when they're drawn to it, you've got to let them fail. I'm really worried and I'm really concerned about the next generation and their ability to cope with failure because of this whole movement around get rid of competition. We've got to wrap them up in cotton wool. And I'm not being too old school, but I think we need a balance between the two. Because kids are just going down now when they've got a cough, and it's really sad to watch, mate, because I think that's the beauty about sport. If we can give them the skills to deal with failure and adversity, I see it in my kids now. They take it into school, when they're getting picked on at school, like my kids get bullied or, there's something bad going on at school. I can see the whole transition from their team, like when they fail at sport, and they take that into a relationship at school. They take it into life, and I think it's just one thing that kids are missing right now is their ability to deal with pain.
Mate, on that topic, we'll end it there. Thank you so much, Kirk, for being on the Scoreboard today. And the Scoreboard's actually quite an apt name for junior sport because, some levels or grades of competition don't have any scores anymore that I've found out until sort of under 13s in various things where the kids, they know whether they've won or lost and they tell you, but the official scoreline is there's no competition. So it's quite an apt way to end, mate, and some really good, interesting insights there as a professional sports player, now into a founder and co-founder of Eggy. I wish you all the best. Great to catch up again and really looking forward to catching up in person once more.
No worries, Sits. Thanks for having us, mate. We'll have to do another podcast with some more stories, eh?
That's it. Some more war stories. Thanks, Kirk. Cheers, mate.